The Canadian Bitcoiners podcast is just two guys and maybe a guest or two discussing Bitcoin, Bitcoin equities, and the related macroeconomic space. It's not meant to be financial advice, so please, if you're doing any investing after listening to our program, do your own research, do your own due diligence, and understand that any money you invest can be lost. The show is meant for entertainment purposes only, and we hope you enjoy the program. Friends and enemies, welcome back to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, episode number 171. My name is Joey. That's Len. This is the CBP Media Network. $54,054.
Oh, I was waiting. What the hell is this? Like, what is this delayed silence?
What's going on?
I thought you were pulling Mitch McConnell on me.
Yeah. Listen, I saw KJP today lose control of the press gaggle for the first time in a long time because somebody either figured out on their own or it's in the logs or it was leaked that they've had a neurological expert come to the White House 8 times in the last little while, and they didn't think it was important to mention it. And the guy's
don't you have somebody like that come to your house? Like every couple of weeks, I have somebody showing up here.
This guy, Len, like they want him out so bad, and his wife is just keeping him in the water. Do not get out of the water, Joe.
You know what I've learned too through all this thing. Before we go any further, I wasn't aware, but all the donations that have been done to date,
they're his. Yeah. They
go to Kamala.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if somebody else comes in, all that money, I guess, will be returned to them, but there's going to be a delay, and it creates a whole problem. So,
okay, so there's precedent for this, right? I was listening to All In. They were talking a bit about this, and I guess in the past, I don't remember if it was that podcast or another one. In the past, though, there was a candidate that was basically like, destined to lose. And what they did, I can't remember which political party, I think it might have been the Republicans, or it was probably Democrats actually. They basically just stopped funding the campaign with a few months to go and just put the money back in the Democratic Party coffers, which is the other option. They can't just give it to another candidate, but they can keep it for the party. So, maybe that's the trick. Kamala, I don't know, Len. Listen, I'm sure we'll talk about it tonight in the notable news stories section. So maybe we'll drop this there and talk about the sponsors. EasyDNS. What a segue. If you want to get a website and host the domain, Mark is your guy. Go to easydns.com and check out the suite of services. They got everything there: virtual private server stuff. They got email. You can actually buy a domain with Mark if you want to, which we have done a couple of times now. And all that stuff is best in class at this point, I would say. Every week, it seems like there's another Bitcoiner, another Bitcoin company complaining about their registrar, complaining about their website, complaining about their shop or whatever. I've never heard anybody complaining to Mark. So if you're not using Mark yet, it's time to start. EasyDNS.com, promo code is CBP Media, and you can get 50% off your first round of buys. Not that you need it, because even if you had to pay full price, you'd still be saving time and money dealing with him instead of dealing with these other clowns that seem to be populating the internet, and just filling it with this other kind of shitty registrar options and services. So you should be going to easydns.com. That's where I would be going if I was starting something up. And we did. So, we're putting our money where our mouth is. Who's the other sponsor?
Yeah, Bull Bitcoin. Right. You mentioned the price of Bitcoin at the start of the show, Joey. Maybe a good opportunity. This is not financial advice to buy Bitcoin. Maybe a good opportunity. Again, that's not financial advice to sell Bitcoin. Do your own research. I'm giving you no advice here, just simply information. But Bull Bitcoin has you covered. You could buy and sell on chain. You could do it through Lightning. I'll be honest, I did not check the fees today. If the network fees spiked, if they're higher, then I would suggest
they're low, very low. They're very low.
So still on chain. Go on chain all the way. Consolidate your UTXOs as well. That's a different topic altogether. But nonetheless, buy with Bitcoin. With Bull Bitcoin, buy on chain. And if you even want to do with Lightning, they have the option available for you to do that. You can buy and sell through Lightning, buy and sell on chain. So really cool stuff over there. But you can also pay your bills. Now the price of Bitcoin went down a little bit. Maybe not the best time to start paying your bills with your Bitcoin, but you can do that with Bull Bitcoin. So if you have a bill that you want to pay, maybe several months overdue mortgage payment, well, you could sell your Bitcoin. You could then use the Bull Bitcoin to facilitate that payment. Also, you could buy gift cards with your Bitcoin, and with that, you could buy, Home Depot gift card, Starbucks, whatever heck you want to buy, and then you could kind of indirectly spend your Bitcoin in the real world. So you're buying these gift cards with your Bitcoin and then spending that in the real world. So it's kind of living on a Bitcoin standard. And of course, Bull Bitcoin is facilitating all these purchases for you. Check it out. If you haven't yet opened an account, do so. Our promo code is below. And if you do that and fund your account, $21 will be added to your account. No questions asked. And last thing, it's non-custodial. Such a good thing. We don't want custodial exchanges. We don't like them all that much.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Speaking of custodial exchanges, last week's guest, Carlo Campisi, policy at ShakePay, and Professor Stefano Di Domenico. I had fun talking with those guys. Steph is an interesting character to me because he is looking into Bitcoin as a guy who's new-ish to the space and really let it absorb him. And, he became absorbed by it vis-a-vis his academic work. So he's doing a lot of research, I should say, which ShakePay very generously funded and provided data for in terms of figuring out, Len, who are the Bitcoiners? What is a Bitcoiner? Who is the median Bitcoiner? Are we smarter? Are we more financially literate? Are we a psycho, as the New York Times seems to think, or whatever publication that was that called us names? That was a fun interview. I look forward to talking to them again. And I told Steph after the show that anything we can do to promote his research, we will do it. So if he wants to come back on, they want to talk about some more studies, they want to talk to us about whatever, I am happy to help with that. This week, Wednesday, I'll be talking to Jeff Lucas, who's the CFO of Bitfarms. Normally, Len would do the mining interviews, but I'm going to take this one because I have some questions that I think are important as far as, I don't know, what's the term? Not culture, but maybe mining, like the state of the union in corporate mining in major miners. It's an interesting time to be a miner. Obviously, they just brought on Ben Gagnon as their CFO. He was their chief mining officer before, or CEO, I should say, today. And so I want to talk to them about what they're doing over there. You and I have, I think, while singing their praises, at least thought a bit about how the business model is going to work over there going forward with all these other big miners moving toward data center / HPC / AI as a secondary rev stream, or in some cases a primary rev stream. And they haven't done that. So I'm interested in having that conversation. Next Monday, Len
that's not gloss. Are you going to be asking the question about what's Riot's talking about? There's that
100%. 100% I'm going to, yeah. I mean, how could I not? I'll say that I was talking to Len before. There's an email in the show inbox asking for the talking points, and I gave a few, but I didn't include that one. That's obviously going to be on there because I have never seen a hostile takeover attempt like this.
So Riot serious. Posted on X. There's a new website called abetterbitfarms.com. This is a Riot run website, and they're talking about what they say broken corporate governance within Bitfarms. This is straight from Riot, not my words. I'm reading it verbatim.
How is that legal? How is that legal? That's another thing I'd be curious about. Like, that seems to me to be awfully close to, I mean, maybe libel. I don't know. This is slanderous, libelous. I'm not sure, but you got to have some real evidence. And it seems to me like broken governance structures are really more subjective than objective. I haven't read the website yet, but I will in advance of Wednesday's show. And of course,
click the link. I didn't.
Yeah,
I still haven't.
I'm gonna click it, and I, of course, sort of CBP throwback here. Since I am not super up on mining these days, if you guys have questions, I would love to hear them. I know I got a few from our guy SB in terms of the HPC stuff. He's big on miners, and so I asked him, what are the things I should be talking to these guys about? He gave me some good ideas, and I'm always looking for good ideas, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have any and you want me to be the front man for your question, hit me up. Let me know. You guys know how to get a hold of me. So, and then Monday next week, I won't say who, but we are bringing on, I'll be away. So we are bringing on a throwback CBP favorite to guest host the show. Someone you guys know, and I think, really enjoyed when the show was kind of in its infancy. And we talked with this guy a lot on the air and off the air too. He's been a good friend to Len and I in the show. And I'm looking forward to seeing him back on our air. Len, I half wish I didn't make the suggestion. I should have saved it for when you are away and done it with them. But it's too late now. The cat's out of the bag. So you're lucky. I really did. I did hit you with that one. That's going to be a banger, I think.
I gave you Scribe, so it's not like I gave you.
Scribe is good. Scribe was good too. I know.
Good.
I know. He's
Let's
very
be
good.
honest.
We actually used him a couple times, right? We used him on the interview with Brian. What was his name?
Oh, Kernigan,
exactly. And he was much more competent a sidekick than I would have been for that interview.
Yeah, look, Scribe, he knows his stuff. He's a very smart guy, and I was thankful he was able to come on when I wasn't willing to come on. That's the only times I don't show up.
Do you know how many questions I've gotten about that? People message me and they're like, I can't, like, we can't tell if you're serious. Did Len actually skip that show because of the guest on Monday or the guest on Wednesday night? I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah. He took the week off. He's protesting. Conscientious objector.
You know, I'll give you another example. I've been what podcast do I talk about a lot? That's
of course. WBD. Yeah.
I've taken them totally out of my rotation in entirety just because they speak. The guy, I can't get into it because this is, but I will be very vague. Says one thing, does another.
You see Tom and Nick just had him, or Tom just had him on Your Life, Your Terms?
PBD?
Not PBD. WBD, McCormick. Not that David.
PBD. No.
Okay.
PBD.
Okay.
PBD. But PBD, I got pissed off what he did. He says one thing and did something else, and from then he's out of my rotation. McCormick was out of my rotation a long time ago. So yeah, like whatever. I stand by certain things, and
you are nothing if not consistent.
Principled, angry.
Yeah. Sure. That reminds me, we got to put a clip out there tonight for All Caps about you talking about the ETF and self custody. I told him that
ETF is not self custody. ETF.
No. He knows that. He knows that. He wants to hear. We'll talk about this during the Gox. We have Gox on the docket tonight?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, we'll get there. I won't even have to prompt you. You'll say it anyways. So
okay, let's talk about boosts because we do have that. I like to get that off my chest. Top 5 boosts of the week. Number 5, we got Wartime, 333 sats. Excellent rip. Good takes.
God bless.
Thank you. Piez. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. 420 sats. Good number, by the way. Thank you, gentlemen, with a couple of beer mugs on there. So like that one.
We know that means cheers now. That's what we know that means cheers now. Yeah.
Mo BTC Dick, 500 sats. Someone give the Bitcoin price a hawk tua. Grease that price up a bit.
Spit on that thing.
We need the Sheik to come out and do that. He was the original hawk tua guy.
Listen, that's advice for life for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Duggan Roop, 1,025 sats. He writes, can't wait to see how their work develops, and industry-funded research is great to see from ShakePay. Yeah. I also like the idea of a Why Are We Bitcoin Academics BTC Sessions hat tip podcast.
I think Ben could pull that off. It sounds like Stefano, I don't want to speak for him. And I don't want to speak out of turn about people I've never met, but it sounds like maybe they're just a tad gun shy to get out in front of this whole thing before it's released. So you might see that in the future, but I think for now, probably that show with me and Carlo is the most you're going to get. Plus he did the conference too, right? He was just speaking about this study in Montreal as well. So he's been out, but my understanding is that it's kind of in poor taste to do too much without your colleagues before publishing. So soon, but not yet. But I totally agree. I strongly agree with the sentiment.
And last but not least, we have Shirtless Summer 3000 sats. Great content as always. Wish the vagrants would steal the 30-kilometer signs going up all over here in Victoria, BC. No rash of kids getting run over, but we must all drive 30 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, that's standard. My uncle has a great take on this, that when my wife and I were first looking for houses, this was like 7-8 years ago, he said, go through the neighborhood during the day and count the number of women pushing strollers wearing Lululemon yoga pants. And he said, although it may be nice to look at, you can almost guarantee that there's a direct correlation between the stupid number of traffic interference laws and regs and obstacles you're going to have to get over, whether it's speed bumps or 30-kilometer speed limits. There's a direct correlation between those things and the number of Lululemon stroller pushers. And Len, I got to say, living up there for 6-7 years, he was right. And down here, the per capita stroller Lululemon is very high and the speed limit is very low. So I think there's something to that. I don't know. We got to look into that. Can we get some academic research on that? Is that feasible, you think?
No, I could give you some psychic thoughts on this. I'm picturing speed bumps coming in your area.
They call them speed humps, by the way. Speed humps, which also, like, you know, that's usually what I do on like a Wednesday afternoon if my wife is home for lunch or something. But
why not speed bumps? What happened to that word?
Because they can't in good faith be called bumps. Like, they're fucking huge. They're enormous. They'll rip the bottom off your car if you go over them any faster than 10 kilometers an hour. It's insane how high and how wide they are.
There you go. So you're going to get some speed humps in your area. That's from my psychic thinking right now. So Be ready. Your suspension is going to need replacing every couple of years as a result.
Yeah, at least, man. At least. One other programming, two other programming notes before I forget. 3 other ones, actually, because you forgot one already. Last week, I went to a meetup in Dundas, organized by our buddy D. Decent turnout. Next meetup, I want to see more people. I didn't do a good job advertising it on this show. I should have. It was the Collins Brew House. There's probably 7, 8, 9 of us, maybe something like that. Really good to talk to Bitcoiners as always. And BTC Beef was there. I don't want to say who it was in relation to the whole group because I'm not sure if everyone knows. But anyway, definitely come to the next one. I'll maybe send a tweet out or something, or we'll talk about it on the show. Next week's interview is a pre-recorded interview I did with Madex on day 1 of the conference. So no video, no live chat, but it'll be on the feed, audio and video like usual. And then also, we're supposed to give a shout out to Gabe for
well, not just to Gabe. First, it's going to be the Ottawa Bitcoin meetup is going to be at the North Gloucester Public Library at 6:30 p.m. And Gabe, aka BTC Advisors, is going to be there. He's been on the show.
What day?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not going. It's too far of a drive.
Yeah, bit of a drive to Ottawa, Gloucester, I guess, from here. But anyway, yeah,
I've done the day trip to Ottawa, and I've watched the Senator. This is many years ago when the Leafs were actually in the playoffs. I guess they're in the playoffs this year, but I watched the Leafs play the Senators Sunday night.
What iteration of Leafs? Like the Wendell Clark Leafs or the Darcy Tucker Sundin Leafs? Like, what are we talking about? This is
Darcy Tucker, but Sundin was injured in this playoff, so it was Gary Roberts was carrying the Leafs that year and was that series. So it was Game 6. In Ottawa, I think that was Game 6, and Leafs won, took it back to Game 7, and we went to the game Sunday night. I went to work Monday morning, drove back stupidly fast, and it was a different time.
Same car though, different time, same car.
Yeah, so this was a time before you could go 50 over the limit and not have your license suspended. So allegedly, the car was going about 2 times faster than the speed limit, allegedly. And so I got from the think about this, from the Corral Center, whatever the fuck it's called now, the Corral Center, we left, and I got to Weston and Lawrence in Toronto in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
That's insane.
Fucking flew. That's could insane. Not repeat that these days, especially with that car. It's not going to be able to maintain that speed. But yeah, man, I'd do it again if the Leafs had a big run and I was back in hockey, but not in hockey anymore.
God. Anyway, so where should we start here? We got
okay. Let's talk about
news. What do you?
Yeah. Okay. I think there's some events going on.
18-minute intro. Is that the longest intro we've ever had? By the way, 18 minutes of housekeeping. Jesus Christ! It's one of them. Amazing if anyone sticks around for the rest.
It's a lot of banter back and forth. I like it. But either way, there's 2 events. It looks like they're spooking Bitcoiners, or at least people that are buying and selling and trading Bitcoin. Whatever the fuck. Number one, we have what's going on in Germany. They're selling off a decent amount of Bitcoin, and this may be part of the reason, maybe wholly the reason why the price of Bitcoin has gone down. I don't know. To be honest, I really don't care. It's a good time to buy, in my humble opinion, not financial advice, of course. But the second thing, we also have Mt. Gox, right? We have that thing. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But either way, they're selling off their Bitcoin, or sorry, their creditors may be selling off their Bitcoin because they're now releasing it to the people that they owe. They're getting pennies on a dollar from all this, but still they're getting a pretty big payday in the grand scheme of things in terms of fiat dollars. We talked to somebody, I don't want to mention who.
You're talking 10,000% gains, basically, right? Like an insane amount, even if it's pennies on a dollar, like it's still, you know.
It potentially could be life-changing for some people. I'm not going to say if it would be for this person, but either way. But as for the first one, I was talking about Germany selling off their Bitcoin. And this past week, up until today, they sold off around 10,000 Bitcoin in the past few weeks combined. Significant amount of Bitcoin that they sold, right? Like, but you got to do got to take a step back here, right? 450 Bitcoin is being mined right now every day. We just had to halving 3 months ago, 4 months ago, April, whenever that took place. But back then it was 900 Bitcoin per day. Now it's 450. So the 10,000 Bitcoin that they sold up until today represents only about 22 days of mining under the current block rewards, right? So it's a lot, but it's not a crazy amount. It's just like we rolled back the clock a few months and went to the old issuance of.
Do you know what's encouraging too, Len? Like they sold today almost $1 billion worth, it looks like, if the wallet addresses are correct, and we absorbed all of it. We're green for the day. That's
insane.
That's a lot of demand. That's a lot of demand for Bitcoin. A lot.
And you could see, like, I don't follow the chart, but it dropped really quickly, but then it picked back up almost as quick as it dropped. There was a lag.
These guys don't know how to sell, by the way. Like, you're not supposed to just market sell 1,000 coins at once or whatever. You're supposed to trickle it out so you don't move the market. They're really eating their own lunch in a lot of ways, doing it this way, but they don't know anything over there. They went from, sort of captains of industry in Germany to completely, arse.
The question is,
in the last,
why are they selling?
Years. Because they confiscated it from some like illegal movie site years ago.
Yes.
And okay. I think they need money. I think they're not a productive economy anymore. They're in need of a cash infusion. I mean, Len, every government thinks this way, right? Here in Ontario, we've done it. Canada, we've done it. Other European nations have done it. Like they just can't help themselves. They don't think long term at all. They don't, and they're not going to start.
Why not just borrow against it?
These guys, Len, come on.
Right? Think you could really go down because
come on. Who are they going to call? Are they going to call Maurizio? Hey,
I have no idea.
We got a couple billion in Bitcoin, Maurizio. Do you
Let's
mind?
do it.
Like maybe he would help him. I don't know. Maybe he hates the government enough that he did not answer the phone. I'm not sure.
Maybe they could have went to Silvergate before they went tits up last year. But the reality is they're selling it, and it's not like they're forced to sell it because if they were forced to sell it because this was contraband and they want to get rid of the Bitcoin, the proceeds that they're going to get from it, they would then just basically get rid of it. They wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like the fact that they're using the money for something,
it's evaporating to show you probably an unbelievable pace too, right? Like think about how fast they would spend that money. Days, weeks, a week max. Yeah. It's just gone. Crazy, absolutely insane. This is so short-sighted. Meanwhile, like in the United States, you got one political party now talking about Bitcoin as a policy item. Like if you had told me the States was more backwards than Europe when I was 20, I would have said for sure. But obviously now, like I've seen the light in the last 10 years. What a difference. Anyway, I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
Well, what happened? It was the Republican Party. They announced
the Trump camp. Yeah, they want to. It's protecting mining, protecting self-custody, no CBDC, no. There's like 4 or 5 points. Nick Carter has it pretty succinctly.
What's the correlation between the CBDC and Bitcoin?
I just think it's, well, I mean, there's enough of it that we talk about it sometimes. I just think that it's like, it's like a choose your way Western man meme sort of, what do you want? Okay. Do you want the sort of freedom of Bitcoin, P2P transactions you can verify on your own with no centralization, no third party, no censorship, or at least very, very resistant censorship? Or do you want the WEF coin? What do you want? You want Klaus or Klaus's daughter or whoever takes over up there now that he's being accused of sexual misconduct? LOL, moron.
I don't even know that. But there's a world that I could see that there is a CBDC with it being backed by Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's within the realm of possibility. So you could potentially have both operating within the same system. So there's not mutually exclusive.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
So that's why when you talk about CBDC, it's just another form of money.
But I like that they're banning it. Like I like it, even if they don't actually ban it. Like let's face it, I don't trust any politician at this point. But even if they don't actually ban it, at least we know that as a base, we're making enough noise. Your buddy David Bailey today making a good point that if the crypto industry, and like he uses the term crypto, I don't know if I would use it, but I think for politics, I've said this in the past, I think I would use it for political reasons. If the crypto industry raises $300 million, we're the biggest interest group in American politics immediately, basically short of oil and gas. And the other thing he noted is that, if 1 in 5 people hold Bitcoin, like Coinbase seems to think, or hold crypto, like Coinbase seems to think, that's already the biggest sort of one issue voting base in history. If everyone is as passionate as you and me are. And so like the way I look at this, I see that stuff and I love it. but we're like kind of getting far afoot from Germany here. I think it's just all sort of, at the very least tangentially connected, I would say.
Well, they're also saying the right to mine Bitcoin and self-custody. There's nothing stopping anything from coming.
Sure there is. Liz and the boys don't want you to self-custody.
But there's no legislation right now. These guys want it. These guys don't.
Yeah. Not now.
But so you have two opposing parties. Not to say that one is going to happen or the other is going to happen. Just nothing has happened. So to date, I could mine Bitcoin in my garage. To date, I could run a node. To date, I could self-custody.
Yes.
And there's nothing stopping me. So
yeah,
it's kind of just pandering more than anything. But if they want to do it, all the more power to them.
I want to see those rights. I want to see those rights enshrined and protected in law, I think. Because
that I can hold 12 words or 24 words. Like, how can you? How asinine is that?
That doing so does not subject you to a difficult life under a modern government. And really, that's all this boils down to, right? There's not a lot of things that are illegal and like enforceable in Bitcoin, but man, can they ever make your life difficult? And I think they will, as things continue to go sideways in most of the modern world. But anyway, I don't want to.
We've had a year in Canada. And that people were able to stack very comfortably a way which could easily be mitigating a lot of these problems. So hopefully people took advantage of that. And anyways,
we talked about this. We talked about this a little bit at the meetup on Thursday, and I'll share it because I think it's a testament to Francis and the team over at Bull. There's people at that meetup who I had not met before. And all of them sort of knew about the podcast or knew that we did the podcast and that Bull was a sponsor. And we were talking about the non-KYC thing. And Len, these guys actually all think that basically everything you buy with Bull is non-KYC because they just have so much faith in Francis basically burning the house down before he gives up information about people to any government that asks.
So I can't speak on it. I could just say
I won't say yes or no. I won't say yes or no either. But
Yeah. The
prevailing sentiment at this meetup was all KYC free or all corn bought on Bull Bitcoin is in pragmatic terms KYC free, which would be nice. But I think there's other ways. It'd be nice other ways to trace it too, though, right? I'm pretty sure if you're doing e-transfers and stuff like that, be aware, as Marty and Matt like to say, be aware. Don't get caught with your pants down.
Yeah, and Mt. Gox, I guess, is another thing I just touched on. We could talk a little bit more about it. So they're handing back some of the Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to some of their creditors. I guess even BSV too.
There's a few things, yeah. Because the airdrops, right? Is that how it works? Like the token?
The forks.
Yeah, sorry, forks. God, I should... airdrops, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the forks, exactly, of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so all those forks that have just even some value, people, I suspect, this is just my opinion, the people that bought Bitcoin in 2013 and then got wrecked as a result of what happened with Mt. Gox, I don't think a lot of them are going to sell Bitcoin. They understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
sure, they made massive gains for kind of hodling it for the last 11 years, but why, unless they need the money and they have to buy something,
the thought that I've seen prevailing, again, I'm terrible cutting you off tonight, but I've had too many coffees, so I'm a little bit wired. The thing I keep seeing on Twitter that really makes the most sense to me, Len, is that the people who are getting Bitcoin released to them from the Gox legal proceedings are the ones who have not sold their coins to, for some percentage of the total outcome or output to some creditor agency, right? They haven't sold their claims. And I think people who are getting Bitcoin at this point are either hodlers, have bought more Bitcoin since, or have no intentions to sell the whole stack, right? So I don't think you're going to get maximum sell pressure on the stuff that's being released now. So in my opinion, I'm not really that worried about Gox. It seems like a lot of people are, though. You're right. Like it's spooking people.
It's a FUD. Now, this is, again, my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I think I share your thoughts. They're probably not going to sell, for the most part, Bitcoiners that are going to get their Bitcoin. Probably get a few that are going to sell. They need money for something, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the majority won't. But I think that the people that are holding on all those forked tokens or coins, they're going to sell those.
For sure.
Right? Because I don't think that they believe...
What is that stuff even worth?
Bitcoin Cash? I have no idea. Was it like
I'll look. Keep talking.
So I think they're going to sell that. Not that it represents a huge amount, but still it's going to be probably driving down pressure on those shit coins. But either way, with respect to Bitcoin, because that's something we should be focusing more on, I don't think the whole Mt. Gox scenario is going to be really going to be impacting the price of Bitcoin all that much. Although I could be wrong, and if I am, better time to stack. It'll be cheap. Joey, you got the numbers.
What do you think it's worth? One Bitcoin Cash. It's a lot more than I thought it was.
Is it $500? Is my guess?
No, is it 330? I would have guessed like 100. It's $330. And then
so I overstated it.
Yeah, BSV is the other one you said?
Yeah, I'll guess 50 to 75.
This isn't even on Coinbase, eh? Jeez. Okay.
They delisted that one everywhere in the past. They got 51% attacked.
That one's $36.
Oh, it's double the price. Crazy. All right. So, shit. So they're all gonna go. Like people that if I got some of that, first I'd find a place where I could sell it. I don't know where the hell I could sell it. I'd find a place to sell it. The second thing, I wouldn't fucking sell it. I wouldn't keep it. Just get rid of it right away. Like it's a fucking joke. Keep the Bitcoin, sell the rest. You're good to go. But
insane. Yeah. I don't know why.
Anyway, anything else you want to add to these two stories? Because I think this is really the driving factor for a lot
all caps. Turn the TikTok camera on. Len, can you give me a quick rundown on how, people who are worried about losing their coins in Gox or who lost their coins in Gox really is a lesson for people who are relying on the ETFs, never rug pulling or losing the coins?
Well, they're two different things, number one. So you have to look at each one separately. Although a lot of people kind of confiscate the two things. Like, they confuse the two things as being one in a way, but they're not. The ETF is, we'll use the example. I give you money, you buy Bitcoin for me, you manage it, and then at the end, when I want it, you sell it, you give it to me. That's what it is. I don't hold my keys. I don't touch my keys. There's no way for me to even get my keys. It's simply, I'm just giving you fiat. You give me back fiat. We call it a day. Now, as per what you do with that Bitcoin, depending on how it's written up in the prospectus, they could choose whatever fork they want based on whatever they want. So theoretically, you could be buying in to exposure to Bitcoin, but if there is a fork along the way and they choose to follow that fork, then your money is going to be tied towards that fork, not towards what you think may be Bitcoin. So there is some risk to it. And the fact that you're having somebody else manage your keys, you're having somebody else figure out what fork or what quote unquote Bitcoin to follow, it becomes really problematic later on. So it's just not a big fan of that. Also, when you do that, you are of the belief that you're going to get your money back in the end. If you think there's going to be any capital controls at all that's going to be put in the future, why would you put any eggs in that basket? So that's that. So with respect to Mt. Gox, when you're buying a Mt. Gox or any exchange, any custodial exchange, don't leave it on there. Take it off immediately or use a non-custodial exchange. When you buy anything on these custodial exchanges, you're asking them to hold on to your Bitcoin. You can get your keys once you ask them to send it to you, but a lot of people apparently don't. They believe that it's safe for them to hold on to it. They have access to it until they don't, until something happens. There's a hack or they just run out of money, FTX, for instance, and then they just lost access to it. Celsius, in fact, we'll be talking about Celsius in a bit. So either one are bad. If I had to choose which is the better of the two, I don't even know.
Neither.
I can't even pick which is the better of the two. It's kind of like
they both present, a unique set of risks, a lot of the same problems. It's not yours. You are risking it in someone else's hands, and you just do not know what negative externalities could cause you to be able to not be able to withdraw your coins, your fiat, or anything in between. You're kind of giving the most generous interpretation of potential events there, a hack or a bankruptcy. How about if you donate to the wrong protest? How about if you are a gun owner? How about if you tweet the wrong thing or start the wrong podcast or have the wrong guest on your podcast? These things are risky no matter how you slice it. And if you don't self-custody, you should assume that you're not going to get it. We assume this, by the way, with other stuff. Pension's a great example. All the money that I'm giving to CPP, I don't assume I'm going to get back. It's gone. It's forcibly basically taken from me without my consent. And I believe that it's gone. You should view these other vehicles, I think, largely the same way. Doesn't mean it will happen, but you will be better off having this adversarial mindset when it comes to everything that's not self-custody, period, end of story.
There's something I want to add to this. The Celsius story. I'm not sure if you heard about what happened with Celsius this past week. Somebody was reporting it's an absolute disaster. For people who aren't aware, Celsius was the place. In exchange, you could buy Bitcoin, shitcoins. You could do staking. They had their own special.
They had their own token, right? Yeah,
their own token. Yeah. So, but it went tits up a couple of years ago, and so I got to ask you, with an exchange, this is my opinion. What you could do with it? Maybe you could add to this, or correct me if I'm wrong. You could buy, you could sell, you could trade, you could withdraw. Those are really the four things. Am I missing anything, or?
I mean, it depends on how you frame stuff like sell. Like ShakePay will let you, spend your Bitcoin. Bull will let you spend your Bitcoin. I would personally frame those as sales.
Yeah,
I think you have the full list. Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically. So one of them is it could keep it on there, right? So you could just leave it there, buy and just simply hold, right? Withdraw is the other one. So buy and then withdraw. So I'm looking at the withdraw one. The user on X, his name is Medx, MEDX. And he posted something that's rather troubling because he was a customer of Celsius. And he did what a lot of people do when they are users of an exchange. He bought Bitcoin or something else, and he took his shit off the exchange. This is not something extraordinary. This is not something out of the, very odd. We just talked about it. This is what people fucking do. They buy shit, they withdraw it. That's fine. Either way. But he did this within the 90 days that Celsius went tits up. As a result, Celsius has launched a lawsuit against him and a bunch of other people in the state of New York. He's in the state of New York. So I don't know much about the other users that are being sued, but it seems like Celsius is under the impression that these folks had some insider information, some inside knowledge, and they knew something was going to come up. So they withdrew their digital assets from the exchange before they got rug pulled. But then now, a couple of years later, they're getting sued by Celsius, and it's being alleged that the lawsuit is going to be used to help pay the customers that lost their funds in Celsius. So they're basically robbing one guy who rightfully got his money off the exchange to give it to somebody else who just left it on there and trusted Celsius. This isn't right. This is essentially a wake-up call for people out there. Choose your exchange wisely. And we just touched upon what to do, like what's the difference between ETFs and the exchanges. Even when you take your money off in a shitty exchange, you could get sued in the right situation. Like this fucking guy. What a disaster. Fuck you, Celsius. This guy did nothing wrong. He just fucking pulled his money. He had no insider knowledge. He was doing like every fucking other user would do. Buy and put it on cold storage. Nothing else. He's getting fucking sued. Fuck you, man.
Why would they say you need inside information for any of this, by the way? Like, did you not see the interview with Saifedean and Schiff and Mashinsky and maybe it was Rand Newer from CNBC South Africa or something like that, where Mashinsky's talking about how everyone can get 7%. And Schiff and Saifedean are looking at each other for the first time, seeing eye to eye, and they're going, like fucking hell you can. Like, what are you talking about, bro? It makes no fucking sense. Anyone who saw that interview would have immediately been like, oh, fuck. I got to get my money off this thing now. And so is that within 90 days? I don't know. But I think the more people that saw that, and, as more people on Twitter were like, yeah, listen, it doesn't seem like these guys can actually be making that much yield, because to get that yield, you'd have to be in some crazy risky stuff. And there's just no guarantee that if everyone, went to pull at the same time, they'd have the money. And guess what, Len? They didn't have it. So I think this is sort of all for naught. They're, sort of taking shots in the dark. I think in the United States, which is where FTX or Celsius was domiciled, there's still some burden of proof. They can't just say that they're suing you for taking your money out without proving that you had inside information. Like, what is your proof of this? I would just be burning those letters on YouTube streams all day and all night. Like, there's no way you can make that claim to somebody. This is akin, I think, to the sort of CSW strategy, right? Where you pick on people who are a little scared, don't have legal representation, don't want to get in any shit. And so you come to some settlement maybe, but I doubt very much that any of this stuff is going to go anywhere unless people really bend the knee and decide they just don't want the trouble, which would suck for them, because I don't think, I'm not a lawyer. And even if I was, I'm not your lawyer, listener, viewer. I don't think this is legit. I don't think this is the way that you can do business.
No, I don't know what type of legal advice Celsius got and why they're trying to pursue action against these people in New York, and it just rubs me the wrong way to
their CFO when they went tits up. Their CFO became their general counsel. He's just taking shots in the dark.
Remember, we were in a chat not too long ago. Somebody was poking fun and posted that there's something that you could stake and get 80% APY. Like, nobody's questioning about like where this fucking yield.
Well, you can get it if it's in that token, but like, you know, if you denominate in that token, fine. But if you want actual money, like, you know, that 80%, I think would shrink pretty quickly. You know, like Costanza in the pool there. I'm sure that you wouldn't get exactly what you were hoping for. So, you know, this is the flywheel economy that so many of these companies did. And I talked about this in great detail with Mike Campbell maybe a year ago now ish, about these flywheels when FTX went under and all this stuff. Like, you know, these guys are all running the same playbook and it doesn't work anymore. And at least for now, you know, we'll see when the bull market really picks up some steam in the next few months, I hope, whether or not these things continue to work. But, in the meantime, Len, I don't know. It's good fodder for us, right? Put these guys in the meat grinder, send them to the front lines of the podcast headlines, and enjoy talking about them. Is Mashinsky in jail? Did he get sentenced to jail?
I don't think so. Correct me if I'm wrong, listener or viewer, because I don't think I think he's still out.
That's crazy. I'll never forget that interview. That interview is amazing. Watching Safe. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it's Safedine and Schiff.
It is.
They're both just like, absolutely not. Like, you're nuts, bro. Listen, I know we don't agree on everything, but we agree on this.
I'm curious, like, why would he go to? Because was there fraud involved? Like, what's the situation?
Yeah, I think he knew they were having trouble and hid it. If I remember correctly, I don't know exactly what the charges or allegations were, but I know he did get charged. So, I mean, I could look it up, but it doesn't make good content from just browsing the internet. Yeah.
Let's talk about a story that we were discussing a few weeks back. And remember, it was to do with vulnerabilities in older versions of Bitcoin Core. And they said they were going to be releasing information as to what they are. Well, they released it this past week, which is interesting. And this is for Bitcoin Core versions 21 and older. These are fairly old releases. So if you're still running them, I'd recommend running something a little newer, unless you're forced to run these for whatever reason or by choice. Maybe you don't want to have Taproot or whatever your choice, either way. So the vulnerabilities we got in what they are was 10 in total. There could be more. I guess there are, because they say they're going to be releasing this information or more information as we go on. So it's going to come in 4 different flavors as they release information with vulnerabilities, not just in core version 21 and older, but even newer ones. So the different flavors are low bugs, and that has hard to exploit or have a low impact. Medium bugs for limited impact. High bugs for significant impact, and critical that could threaten the whole network integrity. So as they say it, the low bugs they're going to disclose 2 weeks after a fixed version is released. The medium and high will be disclosed 2 weeks after last affected release goes end of life. Mm-hmm. And the critical bugs are not considered a standard policy and will most likely require an ad hoc procedure. So starting this month, July, they're going to be releasing vulnerabilities that are disclosed or known in Bitcoin Core version 22. August, Bitcoin Core version 23 gets the same treatment, and so forth. And they're going to go through this whole exercise until they've complete all the different core, the different versions of Core. It's too bad they waited so long to release some of this information. Well, we're not going to know everything for months. And at least now they have a new scheduling, a new policy. Whether you like it or not, at least it's more transparent. It is what it is. It's too bad it took so long, in my opinion, but here we are.
Who came up with the policy?
I don't know. I would assume it would be done internally without much consultation with the outside world, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
What I'm getting at is, to me, this sounds like the C word a little bit that we very rarely use in Bitcoin. And
a cock?
Centralized. It sounds a bit centralized. And I don't know like how I feel about this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I think we both agree that this is an important step, but everything from conception to execution here by a small group of people says to me that, you know, you're certainly, if there is a case to be made that Bitcoin is being quote unquote run or developed or maintained by just a few people, instead of this, like, no, it's open source, anyone can contribute. This is a good thing that the SEC and other agencies would look at, right? I think this is an example. And I hope these guys considered that before they made this statement, because it sounds to me like they didn't consider it. And I think that this puts a target on them.
Well, that's their problem. I guess it's indirectly our problem too.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the bugs themselves, I mean, if you look at them individually, they're not game changers. They're not something that makes Bitcoin any less usable or that your coins were at risk. So we prefer to have it a little bit more open and transparent. I think they're moving towards that. In the end, like, it's still open source. We can still look at everything. We can still review everything. There's a lot more to this that a lot of others don't have. So it's not that bad in my opinion. Not that great,
okay.
Not that bad.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, I just want to throw it out there, see what you thought. Yeah. But okay, no problem.
Silvergate, remember this bank?
Oh, sure. How could I not?
So yeah, it's a bank that was involved with a lot of companies in the Bitcoin space. They were actually lending out a lot of money to Bitcoin miners, for instance, and because Bitcoin miners a couple of years ago were just expanding, and Silvergate was aggressively lending out money to these mining companies to expand. But either way, that all took place up until March 2023, and Silvergate at that time voluntarily liquidated their assets, and that's when shit really hit the fan because the price of Bitcoin tanked just a few months earlier. Mm-hmm. Anyways, the parent company, Silvergate Capital Corp, they have been charged by the SEC for misleading investors.
Oh my God.
And this all stems from allegations that the bank had an effective Bank Secrecy Act / anti-money laundering program. But in reality, they didn't have one. So, and these charges, they were ultimately settled, $43 million to the Federal Reserve and another $20 million to the California regulator. So what's messed up about this is that the SEC was making claims that Silvergate didn't detect any suspicious transfers by FTX. They were one of their customers. Those transfers totaled around $9 billion. Remember, Alameda Research and FTX, there was some shenanigans going on. And it looks like Silvergate was in the middle of all this, maybe having the money transfer from one place to another. Either way, it's a black eye in the industry. Another one, banks that are going to be dealing with Bitcoin businesses moving forward, they're going to look at this, and I think it's going to be more problematic for businesses to want to get any exposure to banks, either through getting loans, maybe even fucking getting an account set up.
Yeah,
this could make it harder.
Do you think this is legit? Do you think this is a legit claim? Like, if I go back and think about Silvergate, what I see is that they were picked on by the SEC, basically forced to close up shop on a Sunday night. And then the SEC said that all the other weakness in the banking system stem from this thing and their involvement with crypto, if I remember correctly. And like, to me, this is an ongoing battle to make difficult the lives of people involved in Bitcoin and crypto vis-a-vis banking, as you mentioned, this sort of like idea of choke point 2.0, right? And I look at stories like this and I just think, how many other frauds have we talked about where the SEC didn't do anything to protect them? To protect like creditors, to protect clients, to protect. I mean, there's a new fraud every day that pops up. The SEC doesn't give a shit about that, any of it. And this thing, they're still going after. What are we, like a year and a half now at this point? I think this was like March of 23, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. I think. Mm-hmm. So
this had to do with FTX, and FTX was almost 2 years ago. So it's even longer than your time frame.
Yeah. I'm not saying they weren't doing business with FTX, but I think the claim itself is. I think it's frivolous, honestly.
The fact that they settled, though, like, granted, it's, I guess, peanuts in the grand scheme of things.
And settling is not a function of guilt; it's a function of time and expense, right? Like, it always is. This was the thing people didn't get about Trump. Oh, Trump settled all these things out of court. Like, yeah, if he's got to spend 3 days in court and settling is less than the cost of 3 days in court for him, then you settle. Like, there's a calculus that the average person doesn't have access to, that these guys do. And I think this is another example of that. Like, I don't equate settling with any admission of any kind. Nor should anyone else.
If you're an corporation, though, it's not like you're sending just a single individual like Donald Trump, and he is the industry of Donald Trump. Yeah. You could send anybody with an FTX. And I'm not sure how the legal workings are in the United States, but if they win the court case, then they have legal claim to get all their legal expenses incorporated. So they pay for it all.
Yes.
Seriously, there's no way to.
No.
So the SEC could just voluntarily charge anybody in there.
Yes. Look at Elon. One of the big things about Elon's cases against the U.S. government over the years is that he's got the money to pay for the court costs. There's no guarantee that the court costs will be covered even if you win, because you hardly ever win. Like you come up with some other lesser charge because that's the calculation people make. So
But how can they do that? They're saying you've done this.
Yes.
We haven't done this. Oh, but you've done something else. So we're going to charge you for the.
Yes.
But that's. I don't know. See that I don't understand the fucking legal system.
I mean, come on. It's all like
it's the way I look at it. If they're nailing me on a cross, I want to be dealt with all the allegations for that cross, not the Jason cross.
No, all the crosses, buddy. They're moving you from cross to cross.
Fuck that, man. I guess that's it for the Bitcoin related stuff because we got a lot more of the notable news. I think we'll be talking about. So let's
okay. Let's GTFO. Thanks for coming. Stay here if you're on video. If you're on audio, the rest will come tomorrow as always. And until then, take care of yourself.
Don't be a cock. Are you a fan of the old school NHL 94 game on the Genesis or SNES? Why not check out my show, the NHL 94 podcast? From tournaments and tactics to the people who make up this community. Check it out wherever you listen to podcasts or find it on YouTube.